For the third week running, Melissa, the Horned Frogs got their brooms out and swept the competition back to California. Plus, TCU's in search of a new running backs coach. And what the hell happened against BYU for men's basketball? We're going to jump into all of that right now on Frogs Insider. Welcome in to another episode of Frogs Insider. Jamie Plunkett here with Melissa Triebwasser. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, you'll notice that Trebe is not in her humble abode, but in a public space right now.
Yeah, we're living on the edge here. I'm covering the Kings tonight, so I'm down in the media workroom at Golden One Center, getting ready for tip-off against the Bulls. The return of De'Aaron Fox after a 2-game absence. Big things happening here in Sacramento.
See if the Kings will light that beam tonight for you. Purple bolt straight to sky. It'd be pretty dope, honestly, if TCU did something similar.
Right?
Right, like just fire a giant purple beam into the sky every time an athletics team won a game.
How could you imagine it from the top of the Shawley? Just put it right on the top of the dome, or like right the chapel, maybe the highest point campus.
But really, just like every sport should have one, right? So there should be one at Lupton. There should be one that way. It's like there's a day where men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball are all playing. Last Saturday, where all three were playing and all three won. You just got like purple beams just firing off into space like lasers.
Maybe a little bit of a flight hazard, but I think that might be worth it. I'm here for it. Maybe just put it on top of the frog horn so that it can just travel around too. That's okay. I don't know, ADJD, if you listen to the pod, but make this happen.
We need to drop that idea. I've got $20 to help make it happen. Also, so.
Okay. Hey, if you donate $20 to the beam, people are going to get really upset that you're not donating it directly to TCU Football NIL. So just
Oh gosh, that's for another podcast, honestly. So we've got a list of things that we've got to get into tonight, Melissa. I know that you've got a Kings game to get to as well, but before we jump in all the way, just a reminder for folks: we are Frogs Insider. We are a part of the Republic of Football Network over at Dave Campbell's Texas Football. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Republic of Football Network or search Frogs Insider. You'll see our streams come up. Hit that subscribe button, leave us a rating and review. Also, a very big shout out to Hell's Half Acre Stadium Goods and Home Field Apparel, our wonderful show sponsors. We will talk about them more in just a little bit. Melissa, though, first things first. A couple weeks ago on the pod, I said TCU football was pretty much hired up. They've got everything fully staffed. They're ready to rock. Well, over the weekend, that changed because USC is hiring Anthony Jones, TCU's running backs coach, to do the same thing over at USC. And it's a tough loss, I think, for TCU because Jones is an incredibly good coach. He's an incredibly good talent evaluator, a great developer of running backs, as we've seen from his time in Memphis and now from his time at TCU with Kendrick Miller and Amani Bailey and Amari DiMercado. Kind of a big loss, I think, at this point in the year for TCU, especially when you consider kind of where that position is right now for the Horned Frogs.
Oh yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think that losing him at this point, when you look at how inexperienced this unit is going into the fall and how many questions we've kind of had about what they would look like, losing a guy who has such a proven track record of developing players, not only at the collegiate, but also the professional, like to get them to the professional level and to have it happen in March. It's a tough loss. I think that people might write it off as, oh, it's just a running back coach, blah, blah, blah. But this is one of your key recruiters. This is one of the key voices on the offensive side of the football, a group that a lot of players expressed they were excited to see that staff return for a second consecutive year. And then you lose a guy like that who's so valuable in so many ways this late, this close to spring ball. I think it's a big deal. I don't think it's going to be overall like detrimental to TCU's record in 2024 or anything like that. But I certainly think that loss will sting. And being able to find a quality candidate that can fulfill a lot of what he did is going to be tough to do at this stage in the process. So I still think, obviously, TCU's an attractive job.
I think so, too. And I think we've seen from his time at SMU and his time at TCU so far that Sonny Dykes seems to be a pretty well-equipped coaching talent evaluator as well with some of the guys that he's brought in. And I think it's really funny, Melissa, because we've seen now TCU fans are kind of in this conundrum for the last couple of years where, man, coaches are getting poached, right? You had Garrett Riley going to Clemson, and now you've got Anthony Jones going to USC. You had a D-line coach going to Georgia. You had Rashad Samples getting taken by the LA Rams. Like, there's coaches are leaving the system, and it's funny, I guess, in a way, to see TCU fans lament this fact when for so long TCU fans were upset that no assistant coaches were ever leaving under Gary Benderson. And so, this is the signal everybody's been saying for a long time. This is the signal of a healthy program. This is the signal of that you've got good talent in the building when it comes to coaches. They develop and they leave and they go do other things. But I can understand kind of the frustration of TCU fans from a timing perspective, but it is still funny to me to see them lament this when 3 years ago they were lamenting the fact that nothing had changed for a decade.
Listen, if there's one thing we know about TCU fans, is this is true of about any fan base and any level of any sport and any point in history, they will talk circles around something to get to the way that they like it or the way that they hate it the most. You can justify or make this like the biggest win in the world or the biggest loss in the world, depending on what angle you want to come from. So I do think it's a sign of a healthy program. You want your assistants to be good and you want other programs to come and get them. You just don't want them to leave. But I guess this is where we're going to talk about the lateral move thing here, Jamie. Is that how we're going to transition into this?
We can. Yeah, I've seen the debate as well, and I personally disagree with it. That TCU to USC. I'm going to take this side of the argument though, because you're from California, and I know which side of the argument you're going to take here. There's a debate on whether or not a position coach leaving TCU and going to USC to take the same position coaching job is a lateral move. And I will concede the fact that it is a lateral move in title. Mm-hmm. I have very little belief in it being a lateral move in almost any other sense of the phrase.
Yes. I mean, I think that's fair. Look, TCU can be a really good and really attractive and really well-paying job, and Fort Worth can be an amazing city, and USC can still be better, right? Like, those things can all be true. And I know, look, did I pop into the board to read the thread after you mentioned the argument that was going on? I did. Did I get irrationally angry a couple of times as a Californian? Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Guys, there's no razor wire around USC. Is it in the best part of town? No. Are a lot of colleges in the best part of town? No. Are there crime issues around TCU's campus? Yes. Are there crime issues around USC's? Yes. But there are literally 100,000 people a year lining up to apply to pay $92,000 a year to go to USC. Program that university is not hurting in any stretch of the word. It is a blue blood. Yes, they have struggled, but I mean, if I ask you rationally, whose last 25 years would you rather have? There's not a college football fan in the country that's going to pick TCU over USC when you look at just production, resources, success on the field, Heisman Trophy winners, national champions, the pipeline to the pro. I mean, there's a lot of good things about this football program, and Lincoln Riley is still considered one of the elite minds in college football on the offensive side of the ball. TCU is a great job. There will be no shortage of awesome candidates lining up to take that spot on Sonny Dykes' staff. I firmly believe that. And Fort Worth is a wonderful, wonderful city, but there are a lot of reasons that people want to come to California to go to college, and there are a lot of reasons that people want to go to California to work in college athletics. There's a lot of positives when you are being well compensated to have a job in that part of the country. It is a nice place to live for if you are, financially successful. So I think that a lot of people want to give my home state a bad rap, just write it off without ever having spent any real time around it. I disagree vehemently with that. I think it is a lovely place to live. Yes, it's expensive, but it's not like we've seen what's happening in Texas. It's not like the cost of living is that astronomically different these days anymore. It's starting to inch a little bit closer together, probably because all the Californians that moved out there, right? Be careful what you wish for. But I think that you have to give a lot of respect to the history of USC and its status as a college football elite. And you also have to look at the future. And right now, it is very much a game of the haves and the have-nots for the next 5, 10, 20 years. And USC has the golden ticket into the Big Ten. They are a part of the haves, undeniably. TCU is in a really good position in the Big 12. I have a lot of faith in Brett Yormark, but they're not as stable going forward. They are not in as advantageous a position financially or otherwise as USC is. Anthony Jones is setting himself up for that next level of success, and he's doing the right thing for him in his eyes for his career, and that's the only thing that matters, right?
Yeah. And here's the thing, too, about this debate. And I can understand why someone would get upset at this notion of a coach leaving for a lateral move. I can understand that because it would be frustrating if that was what was actually happening. If you see a running backs coach leave TCU to take the running backs coach job at Oklahoma State, that would be a legitimate gripe. Or if you saw them taking the job at, a defensive coordinator, let's say, taking the defensive coordinator job at Texas Tech, right? I could see the legitimate gripe there. But what we're talking, and saying that it's not a lateral move, I don't think personally is a major insult to TCU either, because it's not like it's a debate between TCU sucking and USC being awesome. We're talking about the difference of, in my eyes, and maybe you disagree with me here, we're talking about the difference between a top 25 to 30 program from a coaching perspective and employment perspective and a top 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like
I think that's fair.
The margins aren't, just because it's not maybe necessarily a lateral move doesn't mean that the margins are so vast that it's like he's jumping from college to the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, like both things can be true. USC can be, like you said, a marginally better job, and TCU can still be a really, really good job. Like these do not have to be an either or situation here. And again, we don't know all of the factors that play into this. Like, do they have family? I mean, who knows, right? So I think that at the end of the day, I think the number one thing that we need to focus on is TCU fans, people that cover TCU, is that Sonny Dykes is hiring the type of people that other programs want. People are leaving for those other programs occasionally. People are also choosing to stay. And TCU will be able to hire a really qualified replacement who will have a challenge ahead of them with the youth and inexperience in that room. But, we've seen him make really good moves to develop young talent, and there is a lot of potential in that space. So I'm not going to be a universally trust the staff person. That's never going to be my thing. But in this instance, I fully trust that Sonny Dykes will find a very qualified, very potentially just as strong coach, recruiter, developer of talent as he is having to replace.
And remember that this conversation happened 2 years ago when Samples left for the Rams.
Yeah.
Wow. How are they going to find a recruiter as good as him? How are they going to find a guy to fit the culture and fit the system and get the guys in here? And all he did was go hire Anthony Jones Jr. from Memphis, right? Yeah. And so I think we've already kind of seen the example play itself out. And now it's just a matter of, who is going to come in and are we going to see, similar kinds of results from the next guy. And just one quick note as we kind of wrap this up and move on to the next thing, Rashad Samples is not coming back. So let's just get that out. Let's just get that out there right now. It isn't going to happen. But Melissa, what does come back time and time and time and time again is the quality of product that we see every time TCU baseball gets a sweep these days from Hell's Half Acre Stadium Goods. Because my goodness, I was sitting there with Hell's Half Acre founder Stephen the other day at Globe Life Field before the Sunday game between TCU and USC, and we were talking about the sweeps and the shirts and the stuff that he's releasing after every sweep, and I was like, man,
is he kind of rooting against TCU at this point?
No, he's very excited about it, and because he's got so many good ideas for quality products to give to the people, right? And so I think he's hyped every time that there's a sweep that comes through, because that's another opportunity for Hell's Half Acre to put some greatness in the hands of the TCU fan. And if you haven't seen the baseball shirt that released today, the day that we're recording this on Monday, following TCU's 3-0 weekend at Globe Life, it's another banger.
So good.
It's the little frog script on the front. the nice big horn frog on the back with some baseball specific stuff as well. An awesome shirt that you can go and find over at hellshalfacresg.com, along with all the hats and the hoodies and the polos and the koozies and pretty much just everything that you need to get ready for game day as a Horned Frog fan. And the coolest part about Hell's Half Acre Stadium Goods is that a portion of what they make goes directly to TCU student athletes. And I think that that's a really fun way to be able to impact TCU student athletes, is to buy from Hell's Half Acre Stadium Goods, because it feels like everybody wins at that point.
I got to get one of those Carson Bowen shirts for sure. Those are sick.
Yeah, the Carson Bowen shirts are awesome. Definitely got to get one of those as well. And as we talk about Carson Bowen, that's a perfect segue, Melissa.
We're professionals.
We are professional podcaster people. Baseball sweeps their weekend at Globe Life. 2 wins over USC, 1 win over Arizona State. Drama-filled as it has been all season. Questions as there have been all year, but also maybe a couple of answers to some of the questions that we've been having as well. So a lot of drama, especially in that Friday night game, to fall behind to USC in the 9th inning. Ben Abel pitching for the 3rd time in 4 days. Walks 3, hits 2, blows the save. Fortunately, the bats bail him out. We see it again on Saturday night. 6 runs given up on 7 hits in the 7th inning to Arizona State to lose the lead, just for the bats to come right back and score 6 runs again. And then a relatively stress-free Sunday. TCU falls behind after the 1st inning, 2-1. A very scary moment where Zach Morris gets hit with a line drive. It's going to be okay. He got a CAT scan today. And then they
what a shiner! What a shiner that kid had. That's one
lump.
Beautiful.
You can see where the stitches hit him. But after that 1st inning, they score 5 in the top of the 2nd, and it's really, yes, USC scored a couple more runs, but for what was essentially a bullpen game, where you had 3 guys pitching for the first time all year. One coming off of Tommy John, hadn't made an appearance in college since May of 2022. Another who hadn't made an appearance in Colt Taylor since transferring from Tennessee Tech. And a third being true freshman Mason Bixby, who also was coming off of Tommy John from his senior year of high school. Not a bad showing from the bullpen, really, on Sunday when you consider kind of all the factors.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's still a little level of concern with the pitching, especially the starting pitching. But I think in a 5-game week, I'm not worried about Ben Abel one bit. You had that great interview with Kirk Sarlos. You talked about how he overused him. He took the blame. I think Ben's going to be just fine. It's also a kid. The one thing we've seen with him consistently is he does not get shaken by a bad outing or a tough moment. So I think he'll be perfectly fine. He just needs a little bit of time off, and that's great. But overall, the bullpen was super impressive. Mason Bixby is as good as advertised. Watching him just blow fastballs by collegiate hitters the first time he's ever thrown to them in a live game setting was, something special to watch. And then he showcased, a secondary pitch in that 2nd inning too, which was good to see. But I'm sorry, if you can locate 98 as a freshman, we're going to find some innings for you. That goes without saying, I think. So I'm excited about the potential of this offense. Obviously, it feels like every single guy in the lineup is hitting over 300. They've used, I think, 16 different guys in at-bats this season. And everybody pretty much has produced, especially in big spots, which has been great to see. I think that I would not be shocked to see some tinkering with the starting rotation this weekend, but I also wouldn't be surprised whatsoever for Kirk to ride with these guys one more weekend and kind of give them a full month to settle into, the start of a season. But I think the one thing that we've seen is he's got a lot of options. If somebody is struggling, it feels this is definitely the deepest. I don't know that's maybe the best bullpen we've seen, but it's certainly the deepest, certainly the most guys that you trust to go and give you an inning, 2nd inning, maybe 3 if you need it. And as the starters have kind of struggled, with the exception of Cole Klecker's amazing performance this weekend, I think it's important to know that you've got guys that can get you through a 5-game week like TCU faced last week.
I agree, and I think we'll know a lot more about what this weekend's rotation will look like starting on Tuesday with Abilene Christian, because the question is, okay, is Zach Morris going to be okay to pitch on Sunday, right? He took a hard hit to the face, hit him right in the temple. He's fortunate, I think, to have come away as cleanly as he appeared to, with no orbital bone breakage, no major concussions, no signs of anything bad happening internally. Obviously, the CAT scan will give them some more information. But I think you have alternatives. Like you said, there's a little bit of depth in this thing to where, all right, if you want to give Tolley another outing on Friday, which I think he deserves to get another Friday start under his belt, obviously with Klecker going on Saturday, you can say, well, Ben Hampton's been pretty solid on Tuesday, so we're going to leave him in that role, and we're going to roll with Braden Sloan on Sunday, who had a great outing against an Arizona team who is a bunch of free swingers. We've seen them swing at a lot of pitches, and they've struck out, I think, 17 or more times in 5 of their last 7 games, right? So they swing a lot and they miss a lot, but still a very, very impressive performance from Braden Sloan. You can either slot him in on Sundays, or you can say, Braden, we want you to take this midweek game. We're going to go with the dude that's got 41 Big 12 starts in Ben Hampton for our first weekend of Big 12 play. We're going to roll him out on Sunday against Kansas. I don't think either of those are a bad option if Zach Morris isn't able to go on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, and when you look ahead kind of to Kansas in that opening Big 12 series, it's TCU's first time playing a true road game, obviously, but it's not like, I mean, the Jayhawks have put up some really good offensive numbers against some lesser competition.
They lost 2 out of 3 to USC Chicago, so like
they did, and they beat up on Texas Southern a little bit, but
not as bad as Tech did, but yeah.
Not as bad as Tech did. They're consistently putting 5, 6, 7 runs on the board, but you would hope that this is kind of a get right weekend. At some point, TC's going to lose a game. I mean, I think we all know that on some level, maybe, I guess, theoretically. But you've been building up, as much fun as the winning streak has been, as much fun as it has been to not lose, as good as the offensive numbers have looked, all the guys that are getting to play, what you're building up is for this weekend. It's so important to start conference play on a high note. You don't have to go 3-0 up in Lawrence, but you need to win a series. You need to have that road series win under your belt as kind of the positive momentum builder. So personally, I would love to see Braden Sloan get a start. I think his stuff, regardless of competition, he's got some wipeout pitches. He's got stuff that even non-free swinging teams are going to swing at. He's just really proven himself to be that kind, but then you lose another one of your best bullpen options. So I'm going to be interested to see what Saarloos does on Tuesday. If it's Hampton again, as I assume that it will be, and how that impacts the weekend rotation potentially going forward. But all of the build up to this point has been to get you ready for this weekend. Now you got to go out and win a conference series, and what looks like it's going to be a pretty competitive Big 12 once again.
Absolutely. I think with the bullpen too, even if you move Sloan, who didn't throw this weekend at all, into that Sunday role, I mean, you've seen really good stuff this weekend from Zach Hoyer, Luis Rodriguez, Kyle Ayers gave you really big innings.
He's coming along.
Inning game. Like you said, I also have little to no concern about Ben Abelt's ability to get back on the horse and get out there. Mason Bixby showed us some really nice stuff. Colt Taylor, I thought, had a very good 4th inning for TCU. And Storm Hairholzer, he hadn't pitched in 2 years. And
great to see him back.
It was, 93 to 95 with his fastball. Had some really good cut on his off-speed stuff. Yes, there was some rust, but as guys get further and further away from their injuries, we're going to see them get better and better. We've seen that with Louis. We've seen that with Andrew Mosiello this year, and I think we're going to see that with guys like Storm and Mason Bixby as well. So I think there's a lot to like about the guys that they've got throwing the ball for them right now. And who would you rather have than Kirk Saarloos and Dave Lawn working with these guys to make sure that they're getting where they need to go? I think a lot of these guys have their best pitching ahead of them still. And it's okay to let the bats carry you for a while.
Yeah.
Just like at times last year, man, we're going to need the pitching to carry us for a little while, right? Or back in the old Omaha runs from 14 to 17, those were pitching heavy programs, right? And you just were hoping to get like 2 runs and let the arms take care of it from there. Okay, well, you got to beat some teams 7-5 this year or 9-5 this year. You'll survive doing that until the pitching comes along, and I think it will.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, who would you rather have in charge than the guys up front? And I've got to give a lot of credit to this coaching staff for getting so many guys different high leverage situational
Mhm.
opportunities too. Not being afraid to throw a guy in when it's not a clean start to an inning. Not be afraid to give a guy some run. When he's coming back from an injury. You mentioned that kind of the World Series years, that first kind of run. If the other team scored 3 runs before TCU did, you felt pretty bad about your chances. It just didn't happen very often. But now it's like getting used to that. Hey, if a starting pitcher gives up 3 runs in 5 innings, it's probably not going to be that big of a deal. Like every once in
Yeah.
a while, you're going to run to someone that can shut you down. But this team can put runs on the board, and I think the thing that's most important, like I've had 12 heart attacks, or maybe 11 heart attacks so far the course of this season in the first 3 weeks. But this team never looks shook. Like
Right.
there is not a bead of sweat. There is not the lead, and give Peyton Chatnier like a huge. I think he's been really the spiritual and emotional leader of this team. I mean, that dude
Yeah.
plays with the fire in his belly, but I think he's also like super super calm. And when you think of the number of freshmen and sophomores that are playing significant innings for the first time in their careers, these guys never look like the moment's too big for them. It doesn't matter what the score is. It doesn't matter how the pitch is thrown. It doesn't matter what's being thrown against them. There have been very few times that you look at a TCU position player and think, ooh, this dude is outmatched in this moment. And that's a credit to the leadership from the coaching staff. It's a credit to the leadership from these transfers that have come in. I mean, this is a picture perfect situation as far as getting the right guys for your program at the right time and having them slot in and immediately be impactful, not just on the field, but in the dugout.
That reminds me of this fun anecdote that I wanted to talk to you about on the show today, and that's I think it was Saturday night after the Arizona State win. I was walking off the field. We've just done post game stuff, and I happened to just kind of walk off at the same time as TJ Bruce. And so we're walking down the tunnel together, and we're talking a little bit. And he just is going on and on and on about Chatnier and just the kid, the leader, kid. And I kind of gave him some props. I was like, hey, man, like we kind of knew what this kid's profile was at Ole Miss because we had 4 years of it, and he's come here, and in the first 3 weeks, he's taking phenomenal at bats. He's his defense has been really solid. He's stealing bases. I can hear him and I told Bruce this as well. The press box at Lupton, uh, the windows are normally open, and
Mhm.
so we can hear everything that's going on the field. And from where we're sitting in the press box, I can hear everything that Peyton Chatnier is saying at second base. I can hear him in the dugout. I can hear him when he's at second base. And all of it is, hey, come on, you got this, man. Hey, lock in, we got this. Hey, let's go, let's go, let's go. It's all this really, really positive. Let's focus. Let's lock in. You got this. I believe in you. We've got your back. Kind of language that to have that from a guy who, well, first of all, he's the only guy on the roster that's won a College World Series.
Yeah.
But to have a guy who's come in and so quickly kind of embraced that vocal leader role, I think it's a really cool thing to see because TCU has older guys who have been leaders for a while. You talk about Curtis Byrne, Luke Boyers, Anthony Silva stepping into a leader role, so is Carson Bowen. But to have the guy who can be the voice of all of that leadership, I think is super cool. And that's not to say the other guys aren't because they are as well, but he's just a very, literally
Very vocal.
the loudest
Yeah.
of them all. And
And you need that guy.
it's cool to see. It's cool to see how far he's come in the first couple of weeks. And I think I mentioned it on the show a couple of weeks ago. Now it's about sustainability for him. Like, can he keep his body right? Can he sustain these kinds of at bats throughout the course of the season? That's something that I'm going to be really interested to see. But just walking off with Coach Bruce the other night and just hearing kind of how he gushed about Chatnier, it was really fun to see. Like, hey, what we're seeing on the field is being felt by the coaching staff and the players around him in the locker room as well.
Yeah, and I think that like you said, there are a lot of really great leaders on this team, but sometimes you need that big over the top vocal guy, and the baseball players aren't necessarily by rule, super, super loud. Curtis Burns not a loud guy. Like he'll show some emotion and he'll be fired up at times. Carson Bowen's not necessarily the loud guy, but to have a guy that's so respected and has, kind of gone to the mountaintop and won it all, be the loud guy. And you can tell he's absolutely beloved by his teammates too. Like so quickly bought into him as a person. It's a real win.
He got into a jawing match with the USC bench during a quick umpire
I saw your
review
tweet on that.
Sunday.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear. So I had moved down. There are those like field level suites behind home plate, and a couple of them were empty. So I was like, I'm gonna go post up here, and the Wi-Fi still worked for like the press Wi-Fi worked all the way down there. I was like, I'm tired of sitting up in Narnia trying to see what these pitches are actually doing. But I didn't hear what USC said to him, or maybe it was Carson at first base, or somebody said something to a TCU player while the umps are having this little conversation.
And probably about Anthony Jones would be my guess, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because standard baseball banter. And Chatinier turned around and goes, "What'd you say?" And then he said some other things that I'm not going to repeat here, but it was very clear that he got fired up and was just immediately like, I'm going to stand in as the representative for all of the other people who are wearing the same three letters across the chest as we're not down to mess around like that. Like, we're here to do a job. And if you try and get in the way or distract us or whatever, I'm the dude that you mess with now. And it was just cool to see, Silva wasn't even on the field. It's Ryder Robinson and Micah Kendrick, two true freshmen that are standing there with him, and they're like, "What?" And then you see Carson hustle over and he's talking, holding him back a little bit, and then the first base ump gets over and shuts it all down pretty quickly after that. But not only is he the vocal leader and he's putting really good at-bats together at the top of the lineup, but he's got that kind of feistiness to him and that fire that we were worried about with Elijah Nunez heading out the door, and with Trey Richardson and Austin Davis heading out the door. Who was going to bring that kind of fire and that energy? And it's Peyton Chatinier, and he's got it, endlessly, it appears. So.
Yeah. Well, listen, as good as Big 12 baseball is, and we can all, acknowledge that it is, the SEC baseball environment is a different breed. And this dude played 4 years at Ole Miss in front of you've spent a lot of time in front of fans at Dudy Noble. I'm not worried about him being able to hold his own in a jawing session on a baseball field whatsoever.
Yeah. No, definitely not. But, they have another chance too. I mean, some other guys that really stood out this weekend, I know the segment's kind of running at this point. Sammy Myers had a phenomenal weekend, walk-off in extra innings on Friday, 2 more RBIs in a big moment on Sunday.
Jamie, question about Sam. This is important. Are you jealous of his beard?
Sam Myers?
That is an epic.
It's a good beard.
It's a good beard.
It's a good beard. I'm more jealous of the top half of his head, the head of hair that he's got.
Yeah.
Because he's got the locks to go with it. Very, very impressive head of hair on that kid. Even more impressive swinging the bat, and he, not to mention, played all three outfield positions at one point or another this weekend, and just seems to be exactly what he was described to me as back in the fall. He's a baseball player, and that is the highest compliment you can possibly pay a kid like him. It's really impressed by him. Curtis Byrne hit his second career triple this weekend. I don't know if you saw the video clip of it, Melissa, but he got all of it. That was an earned triple. There was no tripping and falling down or anything that happened to make him not to give him the opportunity to get a triple.
He looked like he was about to trip and fall down a couple of times, but
he had the Jordan tongue around second base on his way to third. His tongue was fully hanging out, but that was a laser rocket off the bat.
Smile when he looked into the dugout, you could tell, everybody was surprised. Not that he hit it that hard, nice. But that he made it that far.
Yeah, and a couple of doubles, some runs scored, some RBIs, 2 really good games at first base before he caught on Sunday. And then you kind of mentioned too, Cole Klecker, 6 innings, 6 strikeouts. The most impressive thing about his outing to me was when we were talking to him after the game. I noticed, so in Globe Life, you get velo, and then you also get what the pitch was. And because it's college baseball in a pro stadium, I don't think that the like sensors are fully kind of fine tuned to college pitching versus MLB. And so at certain times, it was registering that he was throwing a cutter. And I just thought, it's just picking up something weird on his spin. Like he doesn't throw a cutter. Something's going on there. But I ended up, we talked to him after the game and I said, hey, did you add a pitch this offseason? And he goes, funny that you asked that. I went to Coach Lawn 2 days ago and said, hey, what if we like mess with your little cutter?
2 days ago.
And then he threw it in a bullpen. It worked really well. And so they just did it in the game. And he didn't use it a ton, but he struck out 2 guys with it. And it was just enough of an extra pitch now. It's like, oh, we thought the book was out on Cole Klecker. Now he's got a cutter that we have to contend with. And it'll be really interesting to see how he kind of mixes that pitch in going forward. It also made me feel less crazy. Because,
well, that's always a good thing.
I was just really impressed with him. Oh yeah, I added a cutter 2 days ago.
Well, I think sometimes too, when you're struggling, and I use struggling loosely, it's not like he's been bad so far this season, but doing something just kind of different, adding something, giving batters a different look can be a lot to change your confidence. And for the ability of, again, just a sophomore to add a pitch in 2 days, use it in a game and strike out a couple of guys with it, that shows you the kind of talent that he has. And as soon as his confidence gets right and he gets, it looked like he was back in his like vintage Cole Klecker groove in that start. So I'm not worried about him going forward whatsoever. I still think he is going to be kind of the ace of that staff, whether it's a Friday night guy or Saturday night guy for the rest of the season.
Yep, fully agree with you there. So TCU's got Abilene Christian at 6 o'clock on Tuesday evening. Then they travel to Lawrence for a weekend against the Kansas Jayhawks, which kicks off their Big 12 season as well. And we'll just kind of see where this thing goes. It's nice to know that they're winning imperfect ball games right now because, if things start to click on the mound at the same time the bats are staying hot, this could be a really, really fun thing to witness.
Yeah, for sure. It's certainly been a blast so far.
You know what else is a fun thing to witness and what else is a blast, Melissa? That's Home Field Apparel, because they have some of the softest hoodies and t-shirts that I think have ever been created in the history of humankind. Not to mention the joggers, the jacket that you got the other day?
Yeah, the bomber jacket
hat going on now. Everything that you could possibly want that is like extreme comfort levels at 100. Home Field Apparel has them, and all you have to do is go to homefieldapparel.com, punch in the code FROGSIN15, and you'll get 15% off your first purchase, 10% off of all subsequent purchases. After that, that's FROGSIN15. Just go punch that in at homefieldapparel.com, and you'll get this hoodie and others.
So many more. And stay tuned too, because they sent us kind of their promos for the upcoming March Madness, and there's going to be, I don't know what we're allowed to say and not say, but maybe some of these mystery boxes are returning. I don't know, and some pretty cool drops coming down the pipe too.
Super excited to tease all of that. Less excited to talk about this last subject of the night, though, Melissa. I was at the game on Saturday night, baseball game that is, trying to also keep an eye on the basketball game. And when I checked in at halftime, which was right, so halftime was about the late end of the 5th, start of the 6th inning of the baseball game. And I'm like, wow, TCU baseball up on Arizona State, TCU basketball beating BYU by 17 at halftime. This is a pretty nice little sports night we've got going on here. And then the 7th inning, the bottom of the 7th inning, where Arizona State scored 6 runs, and the 15-minute mark to the 7-minute mark of the second half of the basketball game happened simultaneously, where TCU not only lost the lead in baseball by giving up 6 runs, but blew a 17-point lead and fell behind to BYU in the second half en route to a 12-point loss. Melissa, what the hell happened?
I mean, we can go with the technical side of what went wrong for that team, but at the end of the day, they gave that one away. It just felt like everything they were doing right in the first half, they stopped making a priority in the second half. BYU missed some easy looks in the first half of the game. They didn't miss anything, it felt like, in the second half. Frogs defenders were collapsing on drivers, even knowing the scouting report going in. And the scouting report in the first half was, they're not driving to score, they're driving to pass the shooters. And then two of the most punchable face dudes I've ever seen in my entire life just were knocking down shots from all over. It was really disappointing. I think that you can say a lot of things. Maybe TCU was playing a little bit above their depth there in the first half, but you cannot go into the break up 17, having been a really strong second half team all season long, and just suffer a collapse to the level that TCU did. It's not even like BYU was playing really, really well. I mean, they were playing well, but TCU also just played so poorly in every aspect and every facet of the game. It with what's on the line and how important this stretch is, it was a very, very disappointing thing to witness, and to see the Frogs just kind of every possession down the floor look almost disinterested and disengaged, in whatever their responsibilities were at the time.
Yeah, I haven't gone back and rewatched all of it yet. I rewatched the second half.
Don't. It's not worth it.
Well, I already watched the bad part, so um, I just with 2 games left in the regular season, and we talked all year with this team about the stretches where they just can't buy a basket because the execution is so poor. We've talked about the stretches where the defense just completely falls apart and they stop rebounding. And I think we've always kind of talked about it through a lens this season of they're working on it, the coaches are aware of it, like they're trying to improve. With 2 games left in the regular season, though, that's just, I mean, at this point, you know who you are, and you are who you are. And it seems like TCU basketball this year is just this imperfect product where it's going to look really, really good at times, and other times it's going to completely fall apart in your hands. And I just can't put my finger on why that's the case, because I feel like they have very good depth. I don't think the coaching strategy or tactic has strayed much from what the original task was back in the summer, right? And beyond that, I mean, Jamie Dixon has always been a defense and rebounding first head coach. It is concerning because this was supposed to be a team that was going to make a pretty big push, not only in the Big 12 tournament, but hey, this was supposed to be the Sweet 16 year. And now, I mean, what are they going to be, a 7 or an 8 seed in the Big 12 tournament and having to play on Wednesday morning?
Yeah,
that's quite a big drop off in the span of 2.5 weeks.
and potentially having to win a game in the Big 12 tournament to make the NCAA tournament too. We talked about Peyton Chatinier and being a vocal leader and being kind of that dog, right, on the field, that dude that's going to stand up. Who's that guy for TCU basketball? And like that's the thing is we know there isn't a star. There are a lot of guys that are capable on any given night of being great. You have guys like Emmanuel Miller, who's just a wonderful leader, an exceptional human being. You have Micah Peavy, who's willing to do the things on the defensive end of the floor that win ball games. But I don't know that you have that guy that is going to buck up to somebody else or that's going to stand up to his own team. I mean, I'm sitting here at the basement of Golden One Center. The Kings coming off of a terrible loss to Miami Heat, had a players-only meeting that was led by a bench player, and then go out on the road without their best player and win at the Timberwolves. Like, who's the guy that's going to do that for TCU basketball? Who's the one that's going to call that players-only meeting and say, hey, we've got 2 games left. We control our own destiny to a degree here, but we've got to go and win a home game against a really annoying UCF team and at a place on the road that we've literally, as a program, never, ever won before. Who's the one that's going to drag them across? Because Jamie Dixon is a great coach. He's a great leader. He's a great developer, not just of on-court skills, but of leaders. But at some point, it's got to come from the players. And I don't know who the guy is that can kind of say, it's time to flip the switch and keep it up for the rest of the season.
My hope and my belief is that that's Emmanuel Miller. Just how vocal he has been since he got here, and how passionate he is, and how driven he is. My other hope is that it would have been Micah Peavy. And in the instances that I've seen, it has been those guys. And this is why I'm having a hard time kind of putting my finger on it, I think, is because I see the talent that's there, and I see the potential, because we've all seen the potential so far this year. But I just can't quite grab what is holding this thing back. And it's not necessarily even that, oh, they don't have a Mike Miles level guy, or they don't have a Desmond Bain level guy, which I think we can all agree that they don't. I was hoping that Jameer Nelson would get close to that this year, and he has at times, right? 30 points against Florida. He's had some other really good moments as well. But we haven't seen anybody consistently at that level from this team. And I wonder if there are moments where, yeah, anybody can get you 20, but it feels like sometimes they're standing around like waiting, like, all right,
waiting for someone.
Who's going to go get us 20 today? Instead of, I'm going to be the guy that goes and gets us 20 today. And I think that's making all the difference in the world right now for this team.
Well, I also think, too, that this is a team that has not shown they can play great defense for 40 minutes, and that their defense is greatly impacted by their offense success or lack thereof. Yeah. And at the end of the day, in basketball, it's a little bit different than baseball and pitching, right? Because every at-bat's an individual person's own moment. But in basketball, you need to be able to rely on your defense when you get to this part of the season, when you get to the home stretch of the games, when the shots aren't falling. And TCU their defensive effort seems often very predicated on how their offense is going. And in that BYU game in the second half, the offense fell apart. They gave up 58 points defensively. And it was just, defense is such an effort thing. I mean, we talked a couple weeks ago about, playing as a full string and playing together and all those things. Those matter too. But at the end of the day, you can cover a lot of sins with effort. And that seems to be the thing that does go first for this team when the shots stop falling. And when you don't have that go-to guy on offense, or you don't, like, Emmanuel Miller is an incredible leader, incredible person, but he's not an a-hole. TCU kind of needs an a-hole, right? Like, at some point you want that guy that's going to get in somebody's face and say, you got to do your job, man. And that doesn't seem to be the case, which all great kids, all really talented players, but who's going to be the one that can really push that button when push comes to shove? We just haven't seen that consistently happen this year.
And, 2 games left in the regular season, who knows if we are going to, right? And context matters, and they haven't had Ernest Udeh for the last 4 games as well, which is a detriment to this team because you lose a lot of athleticism at the 5 without him. And that has created some issues in its own right. But at the same time, we've also seen moments where Mostafa and Cork both play incredibly well and step up into that bigger role. So I don't know. I mean, they've got an opportunity 6 p.m. Central Time at West Virginia to get a second win, get a season sweep over a team, which they have yet to do this year. Would be nice to see them kind of close that one out. And then you got to win your home games. You got to win this home game against Central Florida to finish the season. I think if you win those 2, and it's so funny, we were talking about this last episode, right? We could see them going 3-1, but 1-3 is also a real possibility. And now they're knocking on that doorstep. They've got to get both of these wins, because if you do that, you're in the tournament. Like, you're probably a 10.
Well, you're 10-8. Yeah,
right.
You have a winning record in the Big 12.
And it's your first winning record in the Big 12. Yeah, you've got to go take care of business though, these 2 games. This has to be,
and is that
the most important week of your basketball career for these guys has to happen right now.
And as bad as we feel right now, coming off of that loss and that kind of just epic failure down the stretch, I mean, this is still a team that is well positioned in the Big 12, that is sitting with an opportunity, a very good opportunity in front of them to have a winning record for the first time, to get to 10 wins in conference play, to get to, I mean, what are they? They're 19-10 on the season, so 20 wins on the season is right within play. I think you're right. I think this has to be the make it or break it week, and they really, like, 2-0 guarantees them that they're in the tournament. 1-1 now you're playing with fire, especially with the narrative that's been going around as far as the preseason scheduling for this conference. So I think that the Frogs are showing it is up and down, and it is frustrating as they've been to watch. They're showing a really, really good position this last week of the season. They just have to capitalize on it, and all of the sins of what happened in Salt Lake City will quickly be forgotten if they do.
We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see how it all goes. They've got 2 more chances to do it, and maybe they can pull off a little bit of baseball Lupton magic up in Morgantown and get the first program win up there. That would go a long way, I think, to easing some anxiety that we're feeling around the fan base with Melissa, we'll go ahead and let you go because you've got a Kings game to cover tonight. This has
Light
been
the beam.
Light the Beam. This has been an episode of Frogs Insider. Thank you so much for listening. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. All you have to do is search Republican Football Network, and you'll find our feed with a podcast for every D1 program in the state of Texas. If you just want TCU content, search up Frogs Insider, and our feed with just our show will show up. Make sure that you've liked us on Instagram. Make sure you subscribe on the YouTube channel. You can follow Melissa on Twitter at @TheCoachMelissa. You can follow me on Twitter at @FrogPreacher. We will be back next week with another episode, hopefully talking about TCU basketball having picked up 2 games and a still undefeated TCU baseball team. But until then, we'll just have to wait and see. Melissa, go Frogs.
Go Frogs.